There you go. Kendra, would you like to tell us about yourself?
Me? Yeah, sure. So I've been at Razorfish for the past 3.5, maybe 4 odd years. When I was at Texas State, I had a summer internship at a tiny little marketing branding agency. So I got to work with like smaller companies and more of them. But at Razorfish, I have primarily worked with like one large client for about a year at a time. So I got to like dig deeper into their brand and their digital persona, which has been interesting and fun. And that's kind of it.
Great, thanks. Lindsey?
Hello, I'm, I guess, almost 11 years out now, and I've been working at like big Mad Men type agencies in Chicago and New York. Currently, I bounced in-house because I needed some money. Trying to go back to ad land now that I've had this little break. But yeah, I've worked on many global national clients. So that's kind of my wheelhouse.
Awesome. And looks like Edgar, you're next.
Hey, Edgar.
Hi, Lindsey. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Edgar.
We are kind of in the same class. So.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so I'm Edgar, and currently I'm a senior designer for Primer Gray, which is a small branding and design agency. I know you know Austin.
Yeah, I know Austin, and then I know Henry and Rachel that used to work there. I I used to work at we hired you guys to do branding for my last startup I was at.
Yeah, so those are co-workers. Currently Austin's my current co-worker only, but yeah, so I am the senior designer there, so we handle all kinds of branding projects. Previously, I worked in New York City for a few years where I was the in-house designer for 2 different companies, and one of them went through a complete rebrand. So it was kind of interesting to be an employee of a company when you started and then be a completely different company when I ended. But I kind of spearheaded that whole process with them. And then I did branding work for like a business to consumer retail brand. So that's kind of my background's a lot in marketing and branding.
Great, thanks, Edgar. Jonathan, we were just kind of going around everybody, all the panelists are introducing themselves. Would you like to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Cool, yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. Apologies, I'm a little late. Just got back from being on an interesting production, a COVID production. So, but yeah, I'm a creative director of VMLY&R here in Chicago. I've worked in Razorfish Austin and within the Razorfish US network. So spent a little time in their New York office, their LA office, then went off to JWT, J. Walter Thompson, which is now Wunderman Thompson, out in San Diego. Then helped open up their Singapore office, so spent some time there. Came to Chicago, spent some time at DDB's We Are Unlimited working on McDonald's North America. And now I'm at VMLY&R. So I'm a creative director and I lead a few brands, what are called integrated brands, so TV, social activations, PR type of stunts and stuff. So I pretty much I lead the craft business, which includes Bagel Bites and Velveeta and a few other little CPG products, along with Constellation, which is like Svedka vodka, Woodbridge wines, Maomi wines, and Chuck E. Cheese, which is a weird yet fun brand to work on. So yeah, Texas native, went to Texas State, both for my undergrad and I attended for grad school. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell, I guess. So happy to answer any questions y'all might have around that.
Great. Well, thank you guys for all introducing yourselves. And so since it looks like there's a little miscommunication on the panel structure, maybe we can just go with maybe if there's any of the graduates that have any questions for panelists and kind of start there and kind of get the conversation moving that way.
I actually had a question. So as I've been looking at jobs, I've been looking a lot at like in-house jobs and agency jobs, and I just wanted to know if maybe y'all had any insight on not necessarily which is better, but if there's pros and cons to being in-house versus at an agency, because I know if you're in-house, you're working on like one brand all the time, that's what you do, versus having a lot of different clients and there's some variety. So if you have any insight on that, you know, if you get burnt out working on one thing or if you like the variety, just whatever you have thoughts on for that.
I think there's kind of three. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't mean to interrupt.
No worries. Yeah, I was gonna say at least like some agencies will put you on one client primarily. So like at least for me at Razorfish, I was on T-Mobile for a whole year and I did nothing but T-Mobile branding stuff, and then like a different brand and then another brand. Smaller agencies sometimes will let you like do multiple at the same time, or the project itself is pretty short. And then I've never worked in-house personally, but brands can be big enough that they'll have like sub brands. So even within my work, like at Razorfish, there were like sub brands to some of the projects I worked on. So they'll all fall under like the same brand family, but like it isn't always similar enough that you're like doing the same thing the whole time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say that there's kind of like three different routes to it. I think there's in-house, and then within agencies, there's kind of your advertising agency, and then your branding kind of studio or agency that specializes usually mostly in rebrands or kind of one-off products, and sometimes even these ad agencies will hire out kind of these smaller studios because they're good at they're kind of like the hitmen of the design world, where they're very good at one thing or a handful of things, and so if they really need something like knocked out of the park or some sort of like global rebrand, they'll go to one of these studios. And so in-house, I'd say the pros are you get more money, you get better work-life balance, and you get more, I think, at bats to like fix if something kind of, if you're in-house and something goes out a little bit subpar, there's usually a chance to fix it, at least in my experience in the digital space. So you get a little bit more time. It's less stressful. The cons are that the work is generally not as exciting. I would say, depending on the brand that, you know, depending on where you're in-house at, the work can kind of start to get repetitive and a little boring. So you just gotta find ways to keep it fresh and keep it interesting for yourself. For an ad agency, I would say generally like Kendra said, you're as a junior, you're probably going to work on a lot of the same clients over and over. So you'll probably be on a certain team that does certain projects, and you might have some one-offs that come in and out of that. But for the most part, yeah, you'll kind of be on one team. So I'd say that's like a good in between in-house and like brand studio. So the pros to being at an ad agency, I guess, would be like generally you get a little bit more money than like a branding studio, depending on the branding studio. Work-life balance is still pretty good. There's a lot more in an ad agency, there's a lot more room to mentor and grow designers than a brand studio. And a lot of times even an in-house team might be pretty slim, so there's not a lot of places for you to grow, whereas ad agencies, it's easy to jump ad agency to ad agency or to move up a ladder. And then branding studio, I think the pros are you get to do a lot of really interesting work. You can build your portfolio, like you can build a broad portfolio of different clients really quickly. But the con is that's a very high stress environment. Like it's like a new thing sometimes every other week, every other month. So it can get pretty draining. Both the branding studio and an ad agency can both get they move pretty quick, and it can get pretty draining pretty quick. But you guys are young, you still have energy, and you don't have crazy high bills and responsibilities compared to some of us older folks that need to like retire and stuff now. But yeah, I think those are the pros and cons of each.
And I would say that's a great question to talk to the recruiter about. In my experience, like when I started in Chicago at FCB, I was on a group and I worked on 6 clients. My main one, which I was billed to, was Milk Pep, so like got milk. But then I had opportunities to work on Boeing, Valspar, Sharpie, every single pitch. My team was the pitch team. So I got a lot of different experiences really quickly. And then whenever I came to DDB New York, same thing. Like I didn't want to just be on one client, but you are billed to one client. Like one client pays for you. So that's like, you can't be like, oh, I want to work on the sexy client and ignore your bread and butter. Cause right, like that's what you're here to do. But ask the recruiter. Like I know plenty of creatives who are like, hey, and especially as a junior, like you're running to get all of your student work out of your book as quickly as possible. You're running to get variety of stuff as quickly as possible, because otherwise you get streamlined. Like if you only work on social, it's going to be really hard for you to get to TVC, TV commercials, if that's what you want to do. And speaking from an art director point of view. Designer, same thing. Like if you're only working on one thing for 2 years, like you're kind of behind other people who maybe have had more experience as you think about the ladder that you're going to climb. But
So,
go ahead.
oh, sorry. Sorry, I thought you were done. My bad, Lindsey. So the question was about like the differences, right? Like, or what it's like. And I apologize because it was like my internet went in and out there, so I missed the exact question.
In-house versus ad agency.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Or agency, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it depends, right? You know, the beauty of talking to a lot of people is you're going to get different opinions and different perspectives, and even 2 ad agencies in the same city within a block from each other might be night and day, right? So I think that's the beauty of talking to a lot of people. Some in-house agencies are bonkers crazy, long hours, crazy tight deadlines. You're working on one thing forever, and that's your experience. Other in-house agencies, you get to, obviously you're working on one brand, but you might get to touch a lot of different projects, some products, some branding, some more marketing. Same thing goes with advertising. I've worked at ad agencies where, you know, starting out in my career, I worked 40 hours a week. Actually, when I started at Razorfish, there was times where we would go watch movies during the day. But I've also been at agencies where I've worked 80 hours a week, right? And I'm answering emails at 1 o'clock in the morning on my phone. So it really depends on the agency. And I think part of the sort of your homework as you're looking at different places and applying is to do your research. Reach out to people on LinkedIn, reach out to people through your network, working, not working, fishbowl. Because I feel like when you talk to people, you'll get a better understanding of what that culture, that work-life balance, what that company, that in-house branding or in-house agency, or, you know, the more traditional agency is like. You know, my current agency, there's also been months where I have a great work-life balance and I'm, you know, great hours, and then there's others that are not. So it ebbs and flows. But I think to Josh's point, and nice to meet you, Josh. You know, I think, you know, when you start off your career, you want to just get as much great work as you can, because you sort of live and die by your portfolio, and your portfolio is sort of your calling card for the rest of your career. So you know, I think that was some great advice that I received at one point, to just focus on my portfolio and sort of navigate the rest as it comes. So I would sort of echo what Josh was saying too, like just really focus on the work and do your research and talk to people.
And I guess I can round off the question. I mean, I agree with what the other panelists have been saying. I have experience as an in-house designer and working for a brand agency. I don't have any experience working at an ad agency for reasons that have been mentioned, right? Like my portfolio, my career started somewhere. So if I wanted to get into advertising now, it'd be really difficult because I don't have any work to show for it, right? And I know some of you were in the happy hour with me, so I'm sorry if this sounds repetitive because this question was also asked there. But I think it just depends on your personality, because there are pros and cons to each. You know, when I was an in-house designer and I was working for a company called Flight One, and they do like retail product, travel products, like it was a fun brand. And so I enjoyed the fact that we would brand mini campaigns, right? So like usually around April and May were like the biggest travel season kind of time frame. And so we would do fun like branded mini campaigns to reach out to our audiences. So while also focusing on the larger Flight One brand, right? What I liked about an in-house designer is that you're not just working with design, you're working with marketing and you're working with other people to reach certain goals. And you can actually see those goals come to life. Whereas with like a branding agency, which is where I am now, I am working on a bunch of work for a lot of different clients. And it's interesting because you get to learn about what these clients do, and it's a variety of stuff. I think the downside is it's like we'll do their logo, we'll do their brand guidelines, we'll design a website, and then I never see the brand again. You know, there's potential for that. But also we have like long recurring clients who we have, we're on retainer with them. And so anytime they need a design project, we're there for them. And so some clients, you can have for several years, others you could have for a month. So I think it just depends on your personality, whether you like a lot of variety and a lot of quicker turnarounds and just kind of waving goodbye to projects, or if you want to see things come to fruition and kind of working with like other departments within the brand that you're in or the company that you're with.
And I think to Jonathan's point about doing your research, like it's hard starting out because like when you first graduate, you just kind of want to get any job to get your foot in the door that you can. But when you get interviewed, the interviews are two-way. It's you interviewing them to figure out if they're a good fit as much as they are interviewing you. And kind of as you go in your career, you'll find what you do and don't like, and you'll find red flags at jobs that you've been in that you will inform those questions more and more. So there's no like one right path for everyone. It's just kind of constantly shifting and learning from your experience.
Yeah, and I think that also has a lot to do with company culture, which is a question you should be asking in your interview. Like what's your company culture like? What do you, whatever you're interested in knowing, because like I work for an agency now and I love it. Like my boss is super understanding. He prioritizes us as people first over his business. And so, his mantras are like family comes first, do what you got to do, get your work done, like, what you have to do. So there's a lot of autonomy, so it just depends what that company culture is like. And truthfully, you don't really know until you're there. But if there's ways to ask questions ahead of time, it's always a good idea.
And I build on that too, Edgar, and kind of segueing into your question, Laura. I think like make sure you're working for people that you want to be or you want to become. Like if you're working for people who design in a style you don't like, guess what your book's gonna be? Because like you're a junior, you're kind of mirroring for a little while, like what while you learn the ropes. And you know, like I'm in-house now and I kind of jumped and I'm working for people who like I know from previous agencies and, you know, they've done success at Apple leading that agency. They came to Verizon to open this one and it's great. But then the other people under them, right? I don't deal with the CCO every day. I deal with the underlings and I'm under them. So not to discredit them, but you know, there's this tier of middle management. And I remember interviewing and two of them, I hated their books. I was like, I don't want to work for them. I want to work for those people. But if they're my boss, like, no way am I taking the job. You know, like you have to do your research, just to Jonathan's point too. Like, also make sure you're working for people that you want to be, in addition to like discovering their culture. And culture you can find, like, go to their Instagram, go find people who work there, go to Fishbowl. Although Fishbowl is definitely like, it's venting sometimes, so take
Yeah.
it with a grain of salt. No one really runs to Fishbowl to be like, I had a great day, you know.
Yeah.
Um, just keep it in mind. But you know, look on their Instagram. Like you can tell a lot. If all they have are corporate neatness things, they probably don't have a good culture. But if they have like, oh, we did this and here's the outing, like this agency is Chandelier Creative. They every year for their Christmas party, it's pack your bags. You'll find out where you're going when you get on the plane. And here's this like crazy thing. Like, right, that's a culture. I mean, right, you suffer away for a whole year to make that moment very fun, but like there's kind of this balance. So like go stalk, you know? And I think that was like a really big lesson for me, making sure that I was also not just so thirsty to get a job, but I was actually working for people who were going to help me impact my book in a way.
Kind of to build off of that, like if you do that research and get an idea of who these people are or their company, you'll do better in the interview because you'll kind of have things to talk about. Things might not be as awkward. You don't have to be like, by the way, I stalked you. But like, you know, they'll probably bring it up and like you'll have questions prepared to kind of run with it.
Yeah.
Honestly, just be honest about the stalking. And if they have a problem with that and you have a problem with that, then you probably know that you don't want to work there. But if you're just honest, like, look, I stalked you, it just shows that you did your homework and you're just flat out saying it in a kind of funny way. I mean,
words like research, I researched, stalking, you know?
I would love somebody to stalk me. I'm just saying. It could be cool. I'm just kidding.
I researched your trash can yesterday. I found this.
Right. Magazine cutout letter.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on where you are, I guess. I've always gone for like the small shops, like where I had kind of uniform.
Yeah, it's always good. Like the biggest thing is like be familiar with the place that you're interviewing at. My biggest pet peeve is interviewing somebody and they're not familiar with, like, they haven't done any kind of research on us at all. I'd rather you do too much research and know.
Yeah.
Like people have brought up like my personal artwork and stuff that they found online, which is fine. I'd rather you do that than me have to be like, oh, let's stop the interview so I can explain what the heck it is we do here to you, since you didn't do your research on it.
Yeah, one of the best things you could do is like in an interview is own that conversation. Like, yeah, I love this work that you did, or you know, this project that I saw, blah blah blah, versus waiting for them to say, what do you know about our work, or what do you know about the agency, or what do you know about the brand, right? Because it doesn't take a lot to own that conversation. It just literally takes you 30 minutes out of your day to go to their website, go to their Instagram, go to just, you know, type in their work. And all of a sudden you've sort of put the ball in your court. Like you're able to say, yeah, but I love this or blah, blah, blah. So that's just a small little interview trick, you know?
Especially if you can like talk about the work in depth, like you would talk about your own work presenting it, like instead of just being like, I thought it was really cool that you did this thing, or I really like that logo that you did. Like talk about like, I really like how that logo achieved this goal. Like tell them what the logo, they already know what it did, but to show that you understand why they made those choices is really goes above and beyond.
That's true. And you can also tie it in with your own work. You can say like, hey, this project reminds me of something I'm actually going to walk you through here in a moment, and kind of segue it to your advantage.
Laura asked a question earlier. What have y'all learned in the field that you wish you knew earlier?
I put immediately, like, if you have the opportunity to, and I feel like I said this at our last Zoom chat with Lindsey, and that's, if you have the opportunity to move to a different market, like, do that, because you're diversifying your experience, you're diversifying your, your location, your book potentially. Yeah, it took, when I first started out in this industry, it took me a little bit of a while to sort of make that move for myself. And again, that's why I say, if you have the opportunity to, or if that's even something that is interesting to you. But I feel like if it is something that is sort of interests you, and or you have a little inkling for it, like, just do it. Don't overthink it. The chips always fall into place, like, you don't always have to have everything figured out. Trust me, like, we might seem super seasoned or experienced or whatever, like, we're still figuring out our shit. Even our books, like, we're still tweaking our books. You might think like we're done, but we're totally still tweaking our books. So you don't have to have everything figured out. If you have the opportunity to go to a different market, do it.
I would say something that I think is really beneficial is become a very good presenter. If you can become a very good salesperson, I promise, like, your ladder you get faster, because it means you can be trusted. It means you are cool under pressure. It's like, because, right, I mean, I don't always want to go present. So it's like, because some stuff isn't, sexy like other things. So if you can be a junior who's uncomfortable, and you get comfortable with presenting, I know it's really, right, you're presenting in front of people who are seasoned, who you're intimidated by, people you don't know, but like, this is never going to go away. So the faster you can get comfortable with it and selling your work with logic versus emotion, like, you're not selling it like, I like it, you're selling it, this is the best solution because. And if you can get, play the game, like, even just as Edgar's saying, use fun language, like, I stalked you, like, if you have this confidence in what you're saying, boy, does it just, like, ripple out for you in terms of, like, being trusted with stuff.
Yeah, if you ever wonder why there's, like, you see like a big brand rolled out something that looks terrible, it's usually because somebody was very good at presenting. So being good at presenting can get you through a lot of things. So if you're a good designer who's good at presenting, you'll be great. If you're a bad designer who's good at presenting, like, your bad work will get out there as well too.
Yeah, and presenting also, it's not just about the work, it's about you and yourself as a brand. Like, all of those skills transfer to other places. So being able to talk to your future bosses about your goals, your aspirations, your career track, what you want to accomplish, like, it takes time, but all of those things sort of they work together hand in hand, right? But yeah, that would be my only addition to that. Presenting is super. I used to absolutely hate presenting. I have forced myself to take a stand-up comedy class because that's what all my friends were doing. And it was actually really fun and kind of helped my intense stage fright. So sometimes you have to, like, explore different ways to, like, help yourself feel more comfortable, right? But, like, we've all been there.
I think for me, something that I wish I had known earlier was just how to value my worth, I guess. Like, it took me a while to really negotiate my salary, and I wish I had done it earlier. Yeah, it took us several years for me to, like, finally feel comfortable to be like, no, like, I know what I'm worth and what you're offering is not that. So I'm gonna decline your offer. Like, I obviously I know that you can't do that right away. But if you're ever in that position where you can do that, there's nothing wrong with declining an offer that doesn't fit you. It may be the best job in the world, but if they're already undervaluing what you think you're worth, and within reason, right? You like, I don't expect to be paid millions. You look at industry standards and you ask your friends, like talk about money. It's okay. I think it's okay to talk about money with people that you trust who are in your circle, because the more that the less we stigmatize it, the better it is for all of us.
I'm just finding a spreadsheet to send y'all. There's one that came out. I sent it in the last group that Jonathan and I were in, but it's this whole grassroots thing where people kind of, all these creatives put their age, agency, gender, race, and their salaries. And you can kind of get an idea. I think, like, just to echo that point, Edgar, I did the same thing. I, like, at least in advertising, like now that I'm in-house at a big corporation, like where I get yearly raises, but for my first 9 years, like I didn't get that ever. I had to quit, or I had to threaten to quit to get any pay raise. You will not get a pay raise every year, typically. So you have to be really comfy with whatever salary you're getting, because you're going to be sitting at that for a little while. You know, and that's just how reality is. I think also, like, ladies get really comfortable like advocating for yourselves because statistically you're underpaid, and you know, as you go down from Caucasian males, like it just gets smaller and smaller. So do your research, that way you know to arm someone. No, I'm worth this, or I know you're paying my peer this, here's what I would like, you know.
I guess for me, one thing I wish I had known before I started, and I guess I'm like on the younger end of the scale here, mentor wise, was just like accepting that like nobody knows everything going straight into work, and nobody's going to expect you to be an expert right away. Nobody's even going to expect you to know how to use all the programs, because Sketch didn't exist until I graduated. So I had to like learn it at work. And just like being okay with the fact that not everything you make is going to be the best thing in the world, and you're totally going to learn on the job. Like college teaches you so much, but it can't teach you everything. And it's okay to ask people like dumb questions. Like questions aren't dumb. Probably most people have them. They're just too afraid to ask. And yeah, just like, you know, accept that and just like be humble about it. Like nobody, it seems a little more sketchy when somebody is like, yeah, I know everything, than like, I'm confident with this, or I'm comfortable with this, but I have room to improve here.
That segues into my thing, which is, this is advice I got in art direction 1, not with Holly, but it took a long time for it to stick. So I failed art direction 1. I failed it hard. I had an A on every project. I was very good at art direction. I was very good at coming up with copy and concepts and stuff like that. And because I thought I was so hot shit, I thought I didn't have to show up to work in class days, because I knocked my shit out quick. And so I didn't show up to class. And the art direction teacher took me aside, said, "This is your grade." And then I have to drop it with the syllabus. They have to drop it like every, whatever, 4 or 5 absences or whatever. They have to drop it a letter thing. He's like, "You missed, guess how many days you missed?" And he dropped it. He's like, "It's a B. Just kidding, it's a C. Just kidding, it's a D. Just kidding, it's an F. You failed." And he's like, "I don't care how good you are, you have to fucking show up." And so that you have to show up. He told me that advice, art direction 1, and it didn't stick till years and years into my career what he actually meant by that, or to understand what that actually meant as a creative, is that you can't rest on being good at anything. Like there were a lot of people that I think we graduated with, that I think a couple of us probably know, that were like the hottest hot shit designers in our class, like the top of the class designers that just sat on that the first 5 years of their career and flaked out, don't do design anymore. meanwhile me, which is like I was hot shit in art direction, but I wasn't great at much else. I was kind of a middle of the pack, I would say, portfolio wise in our graduating class. But over time, I learned that like just show up means like constant, like slow, steady progress beats like a hot shot person that doesn't keep pushing their skills at all. Like or trying to like take a shortcut and like I'm just gonna hunker down 1 year and like grind myself. It's like you're gonna burn yourself out. Like it's there's no shortcuts in this. You just got to show up every day and put in an effort. And then another part of showing up was just like you're not there for you, just for you. Like when we're in studio class, we're not just there for the benefit of us, we're there for the benefit of everybody in that class. Our classmates are our studio mates in that sense. And so if you don't show up to work, or if you're not on at work, if you're not there for your coworkers, you're not helping them. You know, if this isn't a solo, as ego driven as designers are, and how much we feel like the pressure on a solo. This is like a team effort, and you have to show up for your team every day as well. So yeah, that was the big advice that I learned. Is just show up every day. You don't have to be like 100% on top of your game every day. You just need to like be there making some sort of an effort, and it's going to be slow, steady progress, but eventually you'll achieve some great things if you just keep at it and don't burn yourself out.
Yeah, you guys have any networking tips or experiences that worked well?
I have a thought. So I'm naturally anxious all the time. Like I have trinkets like this all over my desk because when I'm presenting, when I'm doing stuff, like I have to release some of that anxiety and pressure and intense tension into something. That's something that I've learned to do when I present work, or it's like a high stress situation when you're pitching a giant account, trying to help win this for your agency, right? But that's sort of on the aside. Really, the best piece of advice that I ever got from my mentor was one question, because I that's something that I struggled with earlier on in my career. And my mentor said, just one question, just focus on one question. Whether it's reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn or you're meeting somebody for the first time, if you can come out with one question to that person, you've already sort of broken the ice to your anxiety, hopefully, because then that person has something to feed off of. So, you know, what I would do is if I was, you know, going to happy hour after work, my first year there at Razorfish, and I'm meeting new creatives or other creatives, I would just say like, what's your favorite thing to work on? And people, I feel like, are naturally inclined to talk about things that interest them, right? Or open up or just share. And that in itself can lead to a conversation and friendships and connections and networking. And so if you can just focus on one question, that can lead to more and a conversation and, you know, networking. So I still do that to this day. If I'm meeting someone brand new, a new client, and I have nothing in common with them, I've looked them up on LinkedIn and, you know, did my research or whatever, but I still don't know. I just kind of focused on one question, and then that hopefully leads to more conversation. So that's my piece of advice. And one of these suckers, they help.
I'd say too, like, know that you're entering an ecosystem where like we're all always networking, you know, like too. So it's not a natural, I think now that y'all are new to do that, it's kind of expected. We're all still doing it too. I mean, every day I get like LinkedIn requests from strangers or message, you know, not every day, but at least several times a week. And you know, that's how you network. The name of the game is networking. Like that's how the industry is so small, and that's what's so great. And you all have the perfect excuse. Hi, I just graduated. that's great. That's like the only icebreaker you fucking need. And you can milk that for like 6 months. And just what Jonathan was saying, people love to talk about themselves. Hi, I love this project. I would love to pick your brain for 30 minutes if you have. You're not asking them for a job. You're not asking them for something outside of, can you talk to me about yourself and your experience? And like, you know, we all love to do that.
I have a couple of mental tricks that have helped me in the past. So the first one is to try to, like, if you're about to present or you want to go and you talk to that small group, like you're in your head, right? Like that's kind of where anxiety comes from. It's like you're coming up with expectations of something that could happen that hasn't actually happened, right? So just one is just know that the things that I'm thinking about haven't actually happened. So like, why should I be feeling like this? It's kind of just like a way to kind of come into yourself, I guess. But things that I've done that have helped me, it's like I'll literally, you know how you have like your mind's eye, right? Like you can kind of you have like your mind's eye. So I try to think of like my vision is behind my actual body. So I'm like seeing myself through the back of my head, visually, mentally, walking up to that group or going up to that podium or whatever. So it's not me that's actually doing it. It's just my body, right? But my mind is like back here. So I'm kind of like removing myself from myself. I know that sounds really weird. But the other trick that I learned is that just think of someone who you envision as being confident. That could be a parent, a sibling, a friend. It could be Oprah, like it could be Beyonce. It doesn't matter. And just like channel their energy. Just be like, I'm gonna Beyonce this thing, that like if you know someone more intimately, where you know like the kinds of things that they do, like little mannerisms, just imitate them. These people don't know that. That's not really you or whatever. And then I've learned that once I break that barrier, I become more myself and I forget about all these things that I was like thinking about. So that's my 2 cents.
If it helps, we all get nervous, like everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm pretty introverted naturally. So the big thing that helps me is like I kind of feel like a vampire, where it's like I have to be invited into something. So you have to look for those moments where like somebody is putting out an invitation to, like, if follow people on LinkedIn or on like Twitter or Instagram, and like check out their stories, and when they post like a question thing, like that's the invitation for you to interact with them. For me, volunteering at AIGA was like, that's my invitation. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. Somebody tells me like, hey, you stand here and you check everybody into the event. And so I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I feel comfortable. Like I feel like I'm supposed to be here. I know what my purpose is in this moment. And then also checking everybody in. Everybody sees me. Everybody gets to meet me. I get to see everybody's name on the list. And a lot of times they have what agency they work with. And so I can like, somebody works at an agency when I'm checking in, like, oh, you work at that agency. I liked this thing that you did. And that's like an opening for them, for me to meet them and them to meet me. Or they can just move on to the rest of the thing and I can check the next person in. But like, yeah, looking for those moments to be invited into the conversation and to interact with people. I've gotten, another thing is like networking isn't like immediately. Sometimes like that you network with somebody and like the thing never pays off, like they never give you something or you never give them something. And sometimes it takes like a decade for that thing to come down the road. But if you like approach it as like an urgent, like I need to get this thing from them and I need to get information from you, and it's exhausting. It feels like being put on the spot personally for me. And I like feel like an immediate aversion to like people who who reach out to me very like aggressively like that. So a lot of like the networking I've done, and I've gotten to meet people, like to become good friends with people like Lauren Hom and Andy J Pizza and a lot of the co-loop brand people, because I didn't approach them in a networking way. I just approached them as people. Like you have to remember that like creatives are people. And so like I didn't, when I would like interact with them online, like tweet at them online or like respond to their tweets or comment on their Instagram post, it wasn't me asking a question about like the creative industry. It was me talking to them like a person and talking to them about their interests and messaging about the interest. And then I think we, like, it's a natural friendship, and it's like I haven't asked a ton from them, and even then they've asked some stuff from me. So it's like if you start with a friendship and then it's like a genuine friendship, then you can kind of feel enabled to ask them some questions. But even then, that still kind of feels icky. I've had people that I've met that have like gotten me jobs just because they were friends and they know what I do. I didn't have to like put out to them that like ask them for a recommendation for this job. They knew me as a person and they knew my work, and so they can automatically, like, they're smart people, they can put the connection together and refer on their own. So I think just kind of like being present in people's social feeds, or just kind of being kind of showing up, and you kind of notice, like, even in my own like professional Instagram, or my art Instagram, I notice like there's people that show up and ask something and then they're gone, and there's people that show up constantly, and those are the people that like I DM with constantly. And when they get like a job and they're wondering about pay, like I have no problem answering their questions about that. Or like when somebody reaches out to me about a project and I was like, this isn't good for me, but oh, that person that keeps showing up in my feed, I know their work and they'd be perfect for this. So it's kind of like, again, going back to my advice of just showing up. It's just kind of like being there, being a person in the ether. You don't have to, like, if you're really anxious or introverted like me, you don't have to like be very aggressive. You can just kind of be that person that's at all the events, that constantly shows up in people's feed, that's putting out, work that people see, and that'll get you noticed, I think.
I had a question for just a group of people that are either about to start their new career or maybe first couple of weeks of a new job. Like, how do you guys have any like advice or tips on how to like add value as a junior designer, like brand new to the industry, like in those first few months, or any experience around that?
Ask questions.
Unmuted, sorry.
Don't I'd rather a junior designer ask me too many questions than to spend 2 weeks working on something going down the wrong direction, or like 2 weeks working on something and they weren't sure of like the deliverables. And so when they send it to me to like review, it's like, no, why didn't you ask me like this question? I guess I can't be too mad at them because they don't know what they don't know. But it's kind of a frustrating thing. Like, a good traits of like a good junior designer are asking questions and being like proactive in your work, and just just like researching and finding the people and trying to go above and beyond or deliver more than is asked of you.
Yeah, I would say make your CD's job easy, because if you make your creative director's job easy, that's checking a lot of those boxes. You're going above and beyond, you're raising your hand, you're being proactive. And I know it sounds kind of weird to say that, but like my job is to make my executive creative's job easy. And his job is to make the chief creative officer's job easy. Right. So it kind of goes up. And the more you make your creative director's job easy, he or she will rely on you, and you'll quickly become the team or the person that they go to, because they can trust you, because you follow through, because you ask questions, and et cetera, et cetera. So that would be my thing.
I guess like following along with the asking questions thing, write down the answers. Like, it sounds really basic, but I mean, I literally like started off with a notebook where I would just write down like, what the heck does a time card mean? Like, what are the links? You can do it digitally too, because like sometimes when they onboard you to a new account or a new company, they'll just bombard you with files and like websites to dig through. So sometimes it comes organized, sometimes it doesn't. I like to organize it myself just so I know where everything is, but just kind of document things, because if they put you on a project like in the beginning and that's like your first project, later on you'll get better at like working on stuff. So if you ever need to go back and revisit it, you'll have kind of your thoughts and your answers when you first asked that question a long time ago. Because sometimes like if you ask again, they like other people might have forgotten, or like something got lost in translation. So just kind of keeping like a little journal for yourself on like things you've learned, things you want to learn, things you need to figure out. I have like a Trello board where I have a tile literally named things to figure out, and I just like put my thoughts there on like stuff I'm working towards, like how do I make this process faster, or who do I ask about this? And then like when I have the answer, I like put it somewhere else.
I would say try to find ways to show that you're reliable and resourceful. So if it's like something that you can Google, right? Like do that first. Like try to find the answer yourself. Because if you go to someone and they're like, well, that's a common question that you could have Googled, like you're just kind of taking up their time. And that's how they'll see it, maybe depending on their personality, I guess. Like I honestly don't mind personally, but I can see how going up that ladder, other people might. But also like follow through on what's being asked, and and sometimes it might feel like unrealistic, and so voice that. Managing expectations on both fronts is good, but there's nothing worse than giving you a project and you don't complete it, or I gave you a whole email with changes to make and you forgot to do one or two. Like just be reliable that you're taking attention to detail in the things that are being given to you, because that builds trust. And the more trust that someone has in you, the more work or the whatever they're going to give you. And also like follow the office rules or whatever, right? Like you don't need your supervisor to be saying, hey, why aren't you at work on time? Like that's such an HR thing, I guess, depending on where you go. So do all those things right so that your creative managers don't have to deal with that. And then those would be my two things, like show that you are reliable, you can follow through on stuff.
And yeah, I have two things as well. I think one, time just starts to go by way faster than you realize. A year just blinks by. So I would say if you're starting out, go ahead and write down just so you can take a look at it, and after you get your feet settled after like a month or two, and have list out like what you want to accomplish in a year, what kind of projects you want to get done, right? You know what you're getting into. It's never harmful to ask for more opportunity. Go get your work done, but I promise you no one's going to be like, what, you want to do more work? No. So as long as you're getting your stuff done, there's always opportunity. Oh my God, this is a opportunity rich land. Like half of the work in my book is from proactive projects. That means like we were never briefed. It's stuff that my copywriter and I were just like, we found this cool thing. You didn't ask for it, but can we have money? Like that's all that it is. Then I would say on the flip side of that, I cannot tell you how awful it is to meet a junior who has an ego. it is the worst thing you can do to yourself. I have seen juniors read a book. I have seen them watch Frasier. I don't know why. This is a Gen Zer. I have seen them just be like, no, I disagree. And it's like, you don't get paid enough to disagree. Like, I'm telling you what it is. So anyways, I think if you have a different point of view, just what Jonathan's saying, you're there to make your creative director's job easy. If you have a different opinion, do what they say. Just do it and then do your idea. And then do another if you really feel like it. But just don't have an ego. Like, I promise the industry is very small and no one's gonna come to you and say, hey, you're being a dick, you should stop. They're just gonna tell everyone else next time you try to go get a job somewhere else. I promise you.
And I would add to that, like, ask how you can help. And don't just ask design managers. Ask the person who has to, you know, clean the fridge or whatever. Like, how can I help? It just goes to show that you're a good person, not just like because you want to get your work done and help others do their, you know, do their work that are design related. But if you're helping others within your company, is just showing what kind of a person you are. But just never stop saying, how can I help? You know, how can I help? Something came up, how can I help?
Yeah. I totally agree. Like, I feel like as you interview with companies, like you'll hear, we don't hire assholes. Like, that's like everyone says that just about, but yeah, but they do. But the reality is like emotional IQ is so important. Like, it's so valued. Asking people, like, I can't, yeah, asking people, how can I help? Or is there anything I can do, like in other teams too? Like, you're so right, Edgar. Like, it's so important. It goes a long way.
Yeah.
I guess also adding to that, it's okay to ask for help. If you don't know what you're doing, it's so much better to make that known earlier on than, yeah, like going down that route of thinking you know what you're doing. And then when it's too late to fix it, you're like, oh no, that was very much not what I was supposed to be doing.
I would say too, one thing, like just coming off of that, is the longer you have to do something, the more you better show. If you have like a 2-day turnaround, you can kind of hide a little, you know, be like, oh, here's my thought starters. But if you have 2 weeks, you better be showing me some like beautiful pieces of art, you know, or some well thought out things, or 20 ideas, you know, like don't think that, oh, I finished that in a day, I'm done. Then go talk to your creative director early and be like, hey, I'm so excited. What do you think? You know, like never sit and wait. Oh, like be the hungry one.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like we can, a great creative director or senior designer can like do a good job of anticipating what you need or how long something will take you or whatever, but we're not, like, at the end of the day, we're not mind readers, so we don't know what's going on in your head or what you're struggling with unless you tell us. And bad, senior designers and creative directors will be like, well, that's your problem or whatever, and then you need to to get the hell out of there. But in almost all instances that I've found, like when I come to somebody senior with me and just like let them know and be proactive and let them know what's going on in my mind and what I'm struggling with, then they can address that, and they do a great job of addressing that. But we as good as we are at reading people in our careers, it's like we just can't anticipate everything. So yeah, make our lives easier and tell us what's going on.
And all of these, I feel like, we're all being pretty serious about things, but also have fun. Like, be yourself. Diversity is not just surface level. Like, it's diversity of personality, diversity of interest. Like, be yourself and have fun. Like, some of the best experiences I've had in memories have been when my teams or people at the agency say, hey, let's go get drinks after work. Or do you want to go get coffee in the morning? Or, like, I feel like it goes a long way to just be yourself and have fun because it's contagious, right? And it adds culture. So all this stuff is super serious, but also like have fun. I know it sounds silly, but yeah, just be yourself and have fun.
That's true, because there was this intern when I first started in New York, and the whole agency was quoting this video that an intern had sent because it was so fucking funny. And it became like the culture of the summer. So like, just because you're a junior too doesn't mean you have to sit and like wait to always be invited. Like create the moment then, or, you know, like, hey, mentor of mine or person who's 1 year more senior than me, like, let's go do things, you know? So, and then the culture kind of like, then your social chair, you know, like suddenly people are like, hey, when's the next thing, you know? So yeah, have your personality.
Yeah, I've made a whole career out of a mediocre portfolio and an entertaining personality. People think, like, people at my work, I feel like think I do so much more than I do, and I'm like, I'm really not stepping up as much as I should probably, but you guys enjoy having me here, so I guess so. But also, what I meant to say, or what I originally chimed in to say, was that, like, the original question was like, what can I do to be like a great junior designer? So it's like all these questions are like, or all these answers are like, these aren't things that you have to do. Like, I don't expect a junior designer out of school to be able to do all these things. Like, if you fucked up everything that we said here, I would be like, yeah, you're a junior designer. And it's okay. Like, don't put that much pressure on yourself to do all these things. The question was like, how do I go above and beyond? So it's like, any of these things you can do is above my expectations. My expectation is that you're going to need a lot of hand holding and coaching and instruction, and I expect that. So if you get in there and you're like, oh, I'm not hitting the ground running and I'm not doing all these things, like, that's 100% to be expected.
Just have a positive attitude doing it. Like, I think that's probably the only thing we're really asking for. It's be a positive force in what you're doing, because you're gonna work with these people day after day after day after day, and as has been mentioned, nobody wants to work with a jerk, right? I do have a funny, well, not funny, I guess, side story about things you get known for in the workplace. Like, I was a designated like gift buyer for like employees' birthdays because I always found a way to tie it into like their personal interests. So like literally I was getting paid to go shop around New York City for like people's birthdays, and like I would pick out their cake and like the card, and it just like, I don't know, I don't even know how that happened. It wasn't in my job description, you know, but
Is it
it
on
just
your
happened.
LinkedIn?
What's that?
On your LinkedIn now?
Yeah, it needs to be a bullet point.
You need to add it as a skill so people can like like verify it.
Good gift, or yeah. Anyway.
I mean, personal shoppers make a lot of money nowadays. So.
That's true.
Seriously.
Yeah, see ya, Edgar.
I have a fallback career. Any other questions? I didn't mean to hijack that moment.
Surely someone has a question. We've only had, what, 3?
It's been good discussion so far.
Yeah.
Nothing?
Okay.
Do you want us to put you on the spot, somebody?
Are y'all, as everyone kind of still in their job search, internship search, like where's sort of, what's the range? Just out of curiosity.
Definitely still kind of like testing the water out, seeing what's out there and what regions are already looking for people theoretically, but like, ooh, I'm wondering if I may have like already botched things with like studios that I want to work for, but I didn't necessarily know how to make it in So I send an email off saying, hey, I really liked your work when you did this project. And I was such a huge fan. And I was so heartbroken when they canceled that project. And I didn't hear anything back from that email. So it's just, things just get.
You try again. Like,
Yeah.
Don't just do that once. Do it in a month from now.
Yeah.
You know, mail them a postcard. Like, keep them top of mind.
Totally.
Like show up on their social media like channels, like and commenting on their stuff and just interacting with them. And a lot of times it's like, I don't think, like, you'll reach out to a place and the creative director just might, like, whoever you emailed just might be busy. Like, my inbox gets slammed so quickly.
Yeah.
And especially if there's like an open, if we're hiring in that moment, I get so many emails and so many requests, and I wish I could, like, I know how hard it is for everybody, and I wish I could email each individual person and let them, like, give them some of my time and give them some advice and some encouragement. But it's at certain levels, it's just not an option.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's easier said than done, but try to not be too hard on yourself, because not getting a reply isn't a reflection on your experience or your book. Or, like, I used to nitpick the crap out of my, like, messages sent out, and then, you know, an hour later I'd look back and then I'd turn my phone off, and then I'd look back and then I'd overanalyze and then turn it off and then look back, and then it just became a cycle, right? So, like I said, easier said than done, but try not to be too critical of yourself, because, you know, like Josh was saying, you know, sometimes people don't check their LinkedIn as often, or they don't get to the messages or emails. So it's definitely a numbers game, and first try might not work, second try might not work, third try might work, might not work until the seventh try, right? But yeah, like, being top of mind, following up eventually, like, the squeaky wheel gets the grease more often than not.
Yeah, and if you don't get a reply, that doesn't mean someone even saw it. So I think you should flip your mindset. Like, hey, I just sent an awesome email. I can't wait to send another awesome email in a month because I didn't hear back from this awesome place. And you know what I mean? Like, I can't tell you how many times, like, when did you email? Was it a Monday or Friday? You're not going to hear back. Was it last week? You're probably not going to hear back. You know, like, there's a lot of, like, politics play of, like, people still on holiday. First week coming back is, like, awful. Mondays, I don't want to look at emails. You get forgotten. You know, there's a lot of, like, little tiny cracks that you could have fallen into. And it's, I promise, not a reflection of you. Worst case, you're sending a stranger an email who has no idea who you are, you know? Yeah. And you're going to keep doing that until you get a job. And then you're going to get a job and you're still going to do that.
And this is like, this is a long game. Like, there was like a studio that I loved going through college. I was like, I love this studio. I wish I could work for this studio. It's like, you're probably not going to get your dream studio right out of school. Maybe not even your second or third job. It took me 7 years, 7 years to get to a level where they were like, they recognized my work and brought me in for a project. So it's like, it's a long thing. And just identifying those goals for yourself, with those studios that you like, those places you would like to work at, and just keeping your eyes open and keeping in touch with them. And, like, if you keep your eye on that prize, like, eventually it gets easier to attain. It's like, right now you're shooting from like half court. So you could make that shot, like, and people do make that shot right out of school, but it's probably not going to happen. But, like, as your career progresses, you're taking steps closer and closer until, like, you're right under the net. And we're artists and designers, so we'll probably still miss that shot anyway, but it's a metaphor.
Yeah, and other things might open up too, right? Things that we might not have been expecting. Like, I've been applying to this specific agency for 8 years, still haven't gotten a reply back. And I'm gonna get a reply back at some point in my lifetime. I might be 80 years old, but, you know, in the time that I've been applying at this agency for 7 years, I've gotten some really great opportunities that I've gone for. So, you know, sometimes stuff comes up too that could be equally as great, right?
Yeah, I think, like, be be okay with rejection, be comfortable with rejection. And to Lindsay's point, it's not a reflection on you. It's just literally, sometimes it's a numbers game. Like if you apply to 2 jobs and you get rejected from both, you've only applied to 2 jobs, right? Like if you apply to 100 jobs, chances are you're gonna hear from somebody, right? So just, you gotta be okay with rejection. It's not a reflection on you. It's just part of the process, and we all go through it.
Still go through it.
Yeah. George, you asked, what can you do when you've researched an agency and it had a good culture, but recently there were layoffs and new hires, and Glassdoor has a lot of comments about how bad management is now? Great question. I feel like people might have different answers, right? Like, because it's a little bit of mitigating risk.
I think it depends on like where you are in life. Like,
yeah,
bills got to get paid. So like, you know, you can't fault yourself for having to pay bills.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been in that situation twice. The first time turned out awesome. Like, We Are Unlimited had a bad rap in Chicago and beyond of being like a crazy sweatshop and not great leadership and tons of bad comments. And this is just my personality and how I approach things. I kind of like running into burning buildings because I like the chance to try to put out some fires. So while people are sort of running out, I kind of I see the opportunity and the challenge in that kind of stuff, right? So, and it turned out to be a great experience for me, and I got a lot out of it. And myself, along with a lot of my colleagues, were a part of helping change the culture and making it a positive experience in workplace with, great people. On the flip side, I was also, at an agency that only lasted, for a very short amount of time. And all the comments, same thing, they were very true, but it was an incredibly hard challenge. So you have to sort of be prepared for that reality and almost have a plan A, plan B. If it works out, that's awesome. But if it doesn't, how do I approach that? What do I do? What's my pivot, right? So that's sort of how I approach those situations. Kind of having a pivot, not necessarily a foot in and a foot out, but just being prepared for a potential reality, like when it hits you and you might not be a part of the solution, right? Might not be able to be a part of it.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference between researching a place and trying to get hired at a place. So if you're researching places, I would love to find this beautiful mecca where you make money, you have work-life balance, and you have sexy, sexy work. Would love to find that place too. We would all love to find that place. So there's always going to be some turmoil at some place. And I've been when I was at DDB, I was there for 5 years and I went through 3 CCOs. You know what happens when you get a new top management? They lay off a bunch of people and they burn the field and plant their new crops. Vicious layoffs. And that's what the business is like. There's no such thing as job security anywhere you go. Even if you're at a place that's really great, you lose a client because someone died, someone just changed their mind, someone had a bad day, your job's gone, So there's kind of you're always going to have a risk, just what Jonathan's saying. There's always risk. I think reading about places, still go interview. Nothing at this point is a waste of your time. Go get knowledge. You're knowledge hunters right now. You're networking, you're collecting network connections, and you're collecting knowledge. You can go talk to people, more underling level people, hey, I see you work there. What is it like? How do you like it? What's your balance like? Oh, are you worried about your job? Go do that kind of research. But it is a constant ebb and flow of agencies because the turnover, right? And people becoming new leaders and leaving as leaders and getting laid off or being Me Too people or something. So there's always some kind of drama, and unfortunately at a junior level, you have the least impact of any of it, but you're also usually the safest because you're the cheapest labor. So that's anything.
said this in the chat, but like a dream job is still a job. It's still work. I've had dream jobs where, like Lindsey said, like new upper management came in and like tanked the company and had to get out of there. I've left what I thought was a dream job for something that was unproven on paper, or that was riskier on paper, and it worked out. And I've had that happen where it didn't work out. And I mean, currently at my company, we are sitting at like a 1.25 star on Glassdoor because we were a startup, and like many startups, we overworked the hell out of everybody. And frankly, the work was fun to do, but it was stressful as hell, and we lost a lot of people, and like people got burnt out. And recently we hired somebody from your graduating class. And so when they talked to me, I was just upfront and honest about, like, frankly, yeah, this was a shitty place to work. Like, all of those reviews are valid. But with that, like with a shitty place, if management recognizes it, and at a certain point it starts hurting their hiring process, when enough people bring it up, they have to address it. And so when your classmate talked to me about it, I was just honest about, like, yeah, it was shitty to work here kind of up until like 3 months ago, and then they made a big overhaul, and so I just let them know, it's like, the results of that overhaul are yet to be seen. Like, it's good for now. We've addressed those issues. Like, we could always slide back into that, but it's like, yeah, it's like anything can slide and shift in and out, and just because something has a negative review on Glassdoor or LinkedIn, that could potentially be opportunity if management is open to changing. And that's something you can kind of suss out in the interview, or by asking people that work there how much if you can find somebody who's honest and willing to talk shit about their company, like I am, then you have a clearer picture of if that is going to turn around, or if this is just like an unfixable thing. And my case, I was like, this is a fixable thing, and it seems like they're going to fix it, and they are fixing it. And so I was just upfront and honest and let them know that. And I think that gave them an opportunity they probably would have missed out at. And we'll see if that was a great opportunity or not, depending on how it pans out. But they would have missed that out if they just wrote the company off wholesale just because of some bad reviews.
I also think that even if you have the worst experience ever, that's still good experience, because you are learning what you don't want to see again. Like, and if you're ever in the position, because it will come when you're a manager, you know what you don't want to emulate, so it's going to suck for sure. I'm not saying it's going to be fun, but you're going to learn from that bad experience so that you don't repeat it, or now you know what you actually want, or now you know what kind of culture you're actually looking for or what you need. And so unfortunately, it's just one of those things that you have to learn by going through it. I don't think there's enough, books you can read about it. I don't know. But just know that even a bad experience can turn into something good. And what we all say to ourselves is, like, I can do anything for a year just to kind of get me through it, And once you kind of pass that year threshold, you can make more informative decisions as to what you want. If you want to stay, or if you want to, go somewhere else or whatever.
And worst case, you quit.
True. Yeah, I feel like you hit on something really big, Lindsey, that is not talked about enough about the more traditional ad industry, and that layoffs happen. Like, they really do. And I think, your job security I wouldn't say it's put more into question, but it definitely can be a little bit less secure depending on what types of traditional agencies you're at and what markets as you move up the ladder, right? But I feel like we don't talk about that enough. And not trying to dissuade anybody about advertising or anything, but you know, it's a little bit of a trade-off. You get to work on some cool brands and great markets and move around. I had the chance to travel the world at one point, right? But brands have budgets that change, and like Lindsey was saying, people leave and blah blah blah. And so I feel like it's become a little bit better after the pandemic for sure, but um advertising can have that quirk, the more traditional side.
And kind of going along with like that and tying into like the bad reviews on things, it's like people rarely say good things online. And also it's like when they lay off like a whole team,
Yeah,
that's like a whole team of people going straight to just go. So it's like you can, you know, you lay off a team of 5 to 10 people and they leave 5 to 10 1-star reviews on a thing, that's going to tank your score immediately. So there's those things that don't always tell the whole picture of stuff, and everybody's experience at an ad agency differs just because of the shifting nature. Like the agency with like the new leadership that came in that went to shit, like new leadership came in and now it's like like one of the most amazing places to work here in Houston. So it's like something can have a shit reputation and 1 year and then 2 years later turn it all around.
Also, like my first 2 years in advertising at FCB, right, is an 800-person agency. So there's always people, the turnover is just always happening. Like that's just how statistics works. But if you looked at it, you're like, wow, there's a lot of people quitting, but like not really, it's just 800, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, but that my team, like, so my group, people kind of started dropping. So suddenly as like the 1.5-year person, I became like one of the more senior people on the team. Not to say like I was running stuff, but it gave me opportunity. Like I got to go on photo shoots and they were my photo shoots. I wasn't just shadowing a person above me. I got to handle like, you know, social activations, because this is when Facebook like social was just starting for agencies. And anyway, so there is some opportunity, like going into the burning building, like you're gonna kind of get to do a little more sometimes. I mean, you might have to work 70-hour weeks, which my first year, I worked 70-hour weeks every single weekend for a whole year without a raise. You know, like that's just reality. Because that's the reality I wanted, you know, and then it led up for other opportunities. So that's kind of why too, going in, like maybe that review, you know, you go and investigate and you're like, okay, I want to work a lot because I want to get a lot of experience really quickly. You know, that's kind of a pro if you look at it as a pro.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like we've deflated them, guys.
Who wants a job? Just kidding. I don't have one to give.
No, like we're just giving you real, raw, honest information, right? But I think everything you do it's up to you. It's how big of a grain of salt you want to take stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But don't lose sight of your goals. Just work hard and be a good person, and everything will be fine.
Yeah, I wish I could turn back time and go back to college, to be honest, and be in your shoes. It's so exciting. I'm genuinely excited for y'all. It's such an exciting thing to just like go out and like start your career, you know? Being a creative, think about it. You're getting paid to be creative. Like, I have a brother who's
it's monetized. Your creativity is monetized.
Yeah, like that's insane. Insane. Like I have a brother who's in finance and I can tangibly see what he does, but we all are in a business where yeah, they've monetized your brain and your thinking, which is like, what? This is amazing. Like you get to make things and influence like culture and experiences. Like it's kind of crazy and awesome.
Yeah, there's kind of an exciting thing that happened, I think around like 5 to 7 years into my career here in Houston, where it's like all my friends are like Joe designed the logo for that restaurant, and Sarah did the banner for the MFAH downtown, and it's like we're, especially in Houston, which is just such a blank slate of a city culture wise, it's like we, like Edgar and the Primer Gray team, like so many restaurants I go to, I was like, I know Primer Gray worked on that. It's like they are dictating the culture of our city and like the things that people enjoy. There's like that meme where like the dude sitting in the corner of the party and like it's like nobody knows that I did. It's like I'll be sitting in a coffee shop and be like, nobody knows I did the coffee shop website. But it's like all these.
I'm excited because there's this new development going up in the East End district, like huge development. There's going to be shops and restaurants and bars and outdoor seating, and like we're doing the branding for that. So like pretty soon, and it's really cool.
That's
and
awesome.
I can't talk much about it, but yeah, it's like I work for this little agency of 4, and we're getting to do these great things. And does that come with like having to work a couple weekends? Yeah, you know, it just does.
And if you want to take a class or you want to learn, like my agency paid for me taking French classes. They paid for me to go to South by. They paid for me to go, you know, I wanted to take like a Dreamweaver, or not Dreamweaver, what's the other one? After Effects class, and they paid for it. You know, like they also invest in you where you're like, cool, I don't have to pay for this. And also, like, yeah, just to their point, like sometimes the shitty project I'm working on is taking pictures of Shawn Mendes, which like isn't going to go in my book, but I'm like, oh, what a horrible day. Versus my sister who's I'm like, ugh, that's, you know, like just what it's a weird place where you make nothing and you make everything. So
yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah, I think the coolest transition y'all are in right now is going from working on theoretical projects to now taking what you've learned and working on things you'll hopefully see in the wild. I will never forget the first time I like saw something I did and I was like, oh my goodness, this is so cool.
Yeah, that first few projects where you see the thing you made out in the world, you're just like, holy shit, I helped make that.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
it's cute
pretty
when
awesome.
Friends and family are like, hey, I saw this logo you did, or I saw your commercial, or is this banner ad you? You know, it's like, it's cute. It makes you feel
And
good.
then you try to explain it to your parents, like what you do. And they're like, what? What do you mean? What do you do? Yeah. Like my parents still don't know what I do.
I know. I'm like, yes, people actually design the emails you get. They're not just like made by a computer.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess on that front, another good thing to ask about when you do make a project that you really enjoy and that's really successful, ask about the statistics that come along with it. So like if you made a banner ad or an email or like a TV thing, usually like the project managers are the ones kind of reporting the data and the numbers to like the clients or the strategists. If you can, get that information for yourself because it's kind of like a good metric just to see like how stuff is doing, like how big your influence is just like on the stuff you work on. Eventually, if you can get to the point where you can kind of like tailor your project where it's like, that one did better, so we're gonna go with this direction more often.
Yeah. Good advice.
Well, that was awesome. It looks like we're kind of at the end of our allotted time. But yeah, that I really appreciate it. Thanks for everybody for kind of just rolling with it. Yeah, you guys are awesome. Appreciate y'all's time.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
If y'all haven't connected with us, like step one of being in your shoes, you just network with us. So go network.
What are you waiting for? Yeah. What are you waiting for?
I will most likely decline your invitation if you have not like DM'd me. Like, talk to me first before you send me a thing.
Send a message.
Send me a message.
I'll accept anybody. I'm, just
Other than
saying.
that, DM me on Instagram, and I'll answer anybody on Instagram. LinkedIn is like lock it down.
I have no friends, so I am the opposite.
Yeah, you're like shaking with your fidget spinner.
Yes, I'm like, this is my only friend.
We're designers. We all have no friends.
All right, y'all.
Thank y'all. Good luck.
Thank
Reach
you.
out.
Yeah, reach
Thank
out
you.
if anything.
Best of luck.